All right, ready for a deep dive. We're cracking open Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck.
Oh yeah, this one's a wild ride.
Seriously, title's a bit of a head-scratcher at first, right? Like, are we just going to shrug at everything?
Total opposite rating.
Right. It's more about choosing your battles, figuring out what really matters. And get this, Manson kicks things off with Charles Bukowski.
Interesting place to start. Bukowski, the king of keeping it real, even if real wasn't always pretty.
Exactly. This guy held nothing back. Struggles, flaws, the whole 9 yards. And you know what? People connected with that honesty. It fueled his writing.
It's like Manson's using Bukowski to point out this weird thing about our culture. We're drowning in picture-perfect lives, social media, success stories. Everyone's always thriving.
And it makes the rest of us feel like we're failing miserably.
Exactly. And that's where Manson drops this truth bomb. The backwards law. The more we chase happiness directly, the more we feel its absence.
Hold on, break that down for me. How does that even work?
Imagine you're obsessed with getting promoted. Suddenly, you notice every little thing that could hold you back. You see other people's successes as your own failures.
So it's like self-sabotage disguised as ambition.
Exactly.
So it's not that we shouldn't have goals, it's how we approach them. More about the journey than the destination.
You got it. Manson uses this analogy of working a muscle. The resistance, whether it's physical training or facing a tough conversation, that's where the growth happens.
Okay, I'm feeling the workout metaphor, but Manson doesn't stop at happiness, does he? He goes after this whole entitlement thing, too.
Oh, yeah, that's what Jimmy comes in.
Oh, Jimmy. Remind me who Jimmy is again. I feel like this is going to be good.
Picture this. A guy who is convinced he's the next big shot entrepreneur, overflowing with million-dollar ideas. Problem is,
he never actually does anything.
Bingo. All talk, zero action. And when things inevitably fall apart...
Always someone else's fault, right?
Every time. And this is where technology throws fuel on the fire. We're bombarded with everyone else's highlight reels, the dream vacations, the perfect families.
It's like comparing your messy, behind-the-scenes life to a perfectly curated Instagram feed.
And it creates this need to feel special, to have some grand narrative for our lives. Manson uses this crazy example of Hiro Onoda. Japanese soldier spent almost 30 years hiding in the jungle after World War II ended.
Wait, seriously, 30 years? Did he think it was still 1945 or something?
Basically. He was so sure the war wasn't over. Any news saying otherwise was enemy propaganda. Didn't believe it until his old commanding officer found him in '74.
Wow. Talk about dedication, even if it's to a cause that, well, didn't exist anymore. Makes you wonder how many of us are clinging to stories about ourselves that are past their expiration date.
Right. What if we're holding on to beliefs, fears that stop us from seeing what's right in front of us?
It's like we get so caught up in trying to write the perfect story for our lives, we miss out on the one that's actually happening.
And that brings us to this idea that what we're willing to struggle for, that's what reveals our true values.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Manson makes this comparison. Two musicians, both booted from successful bands. Dave Mustaine went on to form Megadeth, and Pete Best, the original drummer for the Beatles.
Wow, yeah. Talk about two different paths. What happened there?
So both guys, they experienced this harsh rejection early on, right? Mustaine, he goes on to have huge success with Megadeth, but
he's still holding on to that grudge.
totally, decades later, still hung up on those Metallica days.
And Pete Best, he's like, hey, life's good.
Exactly. Found peace with his path, even without the Beatlemania-level fame.
So it's not about avoiding the tough stuff altogether. It's more like choosing your battles.
You nailed it. It's about asking yourself, what pain am I willing to put up with? What struggles actually mean something to me, even if they're hard?
Not about seeking out suffering, but finding the meaning in the struggle.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Pleasure, that's often a side effect, a byproduct of going after something you truly care about, not the main course.
Okay, I like that. Example.
Manson talks about Picasso. Dude's in his 80s, still finding joy in the act of creation itself.
Didn't matter if it was a masterpiece or a doodle on a napkin.
Right. It was the process, that connection with his art, that lit him up.
Makes you think about that quote, fall in love with the process, and the results will follow.
There you go. And this whole idea of focusing on what you can control, it ties into another big one, the power of no.
No, that tiny word that can feel impossible sometimes. Why is it so crucial here?
Because it's about setting boundaries. Getting clear on what truly matters to you, not what you think you should care about.
So figure out your values, then build a life that actually reflects them, even if it means saying no to things that sound tempting on the surface.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Manson actually tells this story. He goes all in on this nomadic lifestyle for a while, traveling the world, chasing new experiences.
Okay, sign me up. What's wrong with that?
He realized even incredible experiences, they have a shelf life. The more he chased novelty for novelty's sake, the less impact each experience had.
It's like that feeling when you eat way too much at a buffet. Sure, you had access to all this amazing food, but did you enjoy it?
Perfect analogy. And,
Yeah.
this whole thing applies to relationships, too.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Manson argues that healthy love, it needs boundaries. It's not about trying to be everything to your partner.
More about accepting each other's individuality, knowing you can't fulfill every single need, and that's okay.
100%. Healthy relationships, they thrive on honesty even when it's tough.
So sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no, or have those difficult conversations.
Absolutely. Manson talks about how he's brutally honest with his wife, even about things like, her appearance.
Whoa, okay, that's taking it there, but it shows a level of trust. Like, you're both committed to being real, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And speaking of facing difficult truths, Manson doesn't shy away from one of life's bigger challenges. Mortality. Yeah, we're getting deep real fast. Where's he going with this? Okay, mortality. Heavy stuff. Where does Manson go with this?
He dives into the work of this guy, Ernest Becker, explored this idea of death terror.
Death terror. Okay, that sounds intense.
Basically, it's this deep down fear of dying that drives a lot of our behavior.
I can see that. I mean, we all want our lives to mean something, right? Not just fade away.
Exactly. Becker's argument was a lot of our motivations, even the good ones, achievement, wanting to leave a legacy, it all stems from this fear of not existing anymore. So it's like we're trying to outrun the inevitable, building monuments, chasing fame, all that.
Kind of, yeah. But here's the kicker. Manson says that accepting our impermanence, that we're not going to be around forever, that's actually incredibly freeing.
Hold on, I'm not sure I follow. How does accepting death make us more free?
Think of it this way. You let go of needing to leave this huge mark on the world. Suddenly the pressure's off. You can choose what matters to you, not what you think will impress others.
So it's like I'm carrying around all this weight, all these expectations, and I don't even realize it.
Exactly. And it circles right back to Manson's point about choosing your struggles. If you're not scared of failing, of not being special in the grand scheme, you can put your energy into what lights you up, even if it's weird or difficult.
It's like, what's that saying? The privilege of a lifetime is being who you truly are.
There you go. Owning your choices, what you value.
Makes you think about those areas where you've been playing it safe, avoiding discomfort. What if those uncomfortable spots are actually clues, pointing us toward what we really care about deep down?
Now that's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Or at least that failing wouldn't define you.
Wow. That's a lot to chew on. It really makes this whole not giving a feck idea more about, like, really living, intentionally.
Exactly. Being kicky with your energy. Figuring out what truly matters to you and letting go of the rest. Embracing the freedom that comes with knowing our time is limited.
So to wrap this up, it sounds like Manson's message isn't about being indifferent. It's about deciding what's worth caring about, what we're willing to fight for, and building a life that reflects that, even if it gets a little messy sometimes.
I'm going to put it better myself. And with that, I've got a sudden urge to do something terrifyingly brave that I've been putting off.
That's what I'm talking about. And for everyone listening, what will you choose to give a fuck about today?